All right. So, hi everyone. I'm here with Christian. Now, Christian lives in Japan, married to a Japanese woman, which I guess means more than these days, and married to a European woman. And he contacted me because he had some. Is it fair to say issues? Probably not quite issues, but you wanted to flesh out my view of Japan, which I really appreciate. And so we're chatting now, and we finished our pre-chat, so now we're doing our chat. And I just wanted to say, of course, thank you so much for taking the time and taking the effort. He communicated to me once before about how Japanese culture is sort of a Stygian abyss over which the political correctness does not seem to be able to get across, which is probably kind of good for a lot of people. But yeah, thanks for taking the time. So if you could just introduce yourself to the listeners, and we can take it from there.
Sure. So I have been living in Japan more or less for about 8 years. The last 5 years almost exclusively in Tokyo. And of course, listen to your shows before, and you know, I came to realize there's quite a big misconception about the fact that people in Japan just don't want to have babies, besides that not wanting to have sex, which I think is it's another issue. And I wrote to you because, okay, this is my perspective. Okay, this is what I want to stress. And this is based on real life people that I know. And that's really what I want to portray here. So, you know, on your show, you guys have put out a lot of statistics, which is, you know, usually theoretical and stuff. But I would like to, you know, introduce again more real life stories, people that we actually know, me and my wife. So people in Japan, it's not true that they don't want to have babies, but it's males who don't want to have babies. Women do. They strongly do want to have babies. And for the few guys who do have a kid, it will depend on their location. That means the city or the jika, which jika is the place, usually the birth place, which is in the countryside, a small town. And it will depend on the salary. Now, let's take a concrete example on this. So my wife, she's 26, in her high school class. There were, I think, around 42 people. And if you count, she just count like maybe around 10 women married. And women are also the majority in the class. But the male married right now in her class is only one. And it's only married because of a shotgun wedding, as they call it here, shotgun wedding. And so, you know, they had accidentally, so to speak, a baby, and they got married. Because it's actually usual in Japan. Like if you get a baby, you get you know, the social pressure, which actually works out, and it pans out that people usually actually do get married in the end. And it's just funny because I'll just add in parentheses, guess what he works, what his work, this guy, only, you know, shotgun winning guy does. He works for the government, and he stated that he wanted a safe, stable job so that he could get a family, which actually relates to another previous call that you had. Can't remember which episode. It was pretty much the same situation when a guy called. He had a problem because the wife, you know, chose to do a government job. Well, now is actually a guy who chose it because it's a stable job. So in the media and everywhere else, especially also in Japan, you get this type of a child promotion campaign, so to speak. So you got this education fee, which is enormous. What is it? What, $500,000 till graduation, and then you got what it's called. You need to have my home. They actually say my home with the English word. That means you need to have your own house. You need to you own your own house. I'm talking about the guy here, of course, and therefore you need to have a big salary. And this is a lot of pressure, and a lot of guys don't have enough confidence in their career. On the contrary, they have anxiety over their career. Jobs are not as stable as they used to. Actually, they're extremely flexible at the moment. Now, a concrete example on this case.
I'm sorry, I want to get all of these thoughts and ideas. I absolutely do. Should I just wait? I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I do have sort of questions as we go. So, but I don't want to interrupt your flow. So you tell me what's best for you.
No, go ahead and ask me. Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the job security stuff, because that, of course, was one of the great. So my sort of initial introduction to Japanese culture came out of the sort of 80s when there was this huge competition between the Western capitalist model and the Japanese or the East Asian model of, this karoshi, this overwork, this you do calisthenics or exercise at the company, and there's this dedication, this precision, this purpose, and whereas the sort of more friendly and relaxed Western capitalist model was considered doomed by what was going on in the Asian landscape, and that it was like, okay, it's strict and it's kind of like, seems like a bit of a cult, but on the other hand, boy, you get super job security and, cradle to grave, and you're taken off, you got a whole community, everyone looks out for each other. So is that something, I assume obviously that's something that's changed over the last couple of decades, is that right?
Yes, exactly. It's completely changed. And one of the reasons, actually, this goes back, I was at your show yesterday, that, of course, on the workforce, guess what? The women showed up. And exactly as you mentioned, the salary went down. Now, this is funny because I was about to mention it, but, I'll mention it now. So the average salary, you could say, is around, what, $3,000, let's say dollars, okay? Now, okay? And in the 90s was $3,000. So it hasn't changed the salary, but you got 30 years of inflation. So
yeah.
you can easily understand how the power, the buying power of average Japanese is just now ridiculous, and therefore you cannot afford to have what it used to be a one husband having his job and taking care of his family. You just cannot, especially if you have a baby. And I was about to mention this friend of mine, friend of ours, this 7 years old, we went doing some fishing recently. So 27, he worked now for what, 5 years? They start very early. And how much did he save in his bank account? Okay, that's around $10,000. So does he have the confidence to have a baby? Hell no, he doesn't. Not with that kind of money. And now we briefly get to the problem of the location. So if given the help and proximity to his family, will he find the confidence to have a baby? Yeah, probably yes. And here I also have another example to say why I say this. Another friend of ours, they just married, she's 26, he's a bit older, and they had a baby. They just had a baby. They lived near Tokyo, Ibaraki, and they just decided to move it to Kobe, which is close to their parents and grandparents. You see? Now we're getting back to that old, like you, what do you call it yesterday? It was a child paradise in the 60s?
Yeah, 50s more, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly, because that's what you want. That's what gives you also, that's a safety net for you to, because, she left already the job. And, but when you got the help of an extended family, that's a totally different matter. Because here in Tokyo, you're totally isolated. Talk about COVID, it doesn't matter. They are isolated, no matter what virus comes along. They're just isolated. The family just lives, kilometers and kilometers away. And they don't meet maybe once a year just for the New Year's. So those who have kids in Tokyo, they have a great job and a great salary, okay? So, again, if you want to interrupt me anywhere, just go ahead.
Keep going, yeah.
Okay, so young married couple in the cities, yes, if you are rich, super rich. So someone we know, again, another concrete example, 23-year-old couple live in an apartment in Odaiba, which is this new, artificial island here in Tokyo, and they pay $3,000 a month rent. Now, you may think that's not a lot if you compare it to San Francisco and other places, but in comparison, I live in a great place and we pay $850. Okay, so when our people heard how much they were paying for the apartment, 23 years old, they were stunned. And in fact, we found out that their parents are paying for the rent. Okay, and they will soon have a kid. They will, of course, they will. When you get a parent who pays a $3,000 rent, which is again here is just unheard of. This is just ridiculous.
Well, how big is the place that they've got?
I think it's just, like a two LDK, something like this, just two people plus, the thinking about the future kid. But it's in a new area, like so the new apartments here are incredibly expensive. That's why we live in an old apartment, which is completely fine. You know, we live with a tatami. You know, it's kind of traditional one,
You live with
but
what?
it's perfect fun. Sorry, tatami. It's the floor, the Japanese floor made of, you know, it's the soft floor
Okay. Yeah.
made of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of traditional, half modern style house. But it's an old house. It's like, what, 35 years old house? But if you live in a new apartment, it means new, like you just built apartment and you rent there or you buy that, that's going to be extremely expensive. Okay. So that's why, you know, the rent was expensive. So, in Tokyo also, another friend of ours, just to be in the rich portion of people who get kids. Another friend of ours, another concrete example, studied in Tokyo with my wife, actually. I met her. Really nice, good-looking girl. She just posted on Instagram her picture of her pregnancy, and she's only 25 years old now. In Tokyo, that's a rarity. But she's super rich. She can afford it. She's got incredible, you know, support from, you know, especially if you look at Instagram, her pictures of all her family and stuff, you know. And so you look at this, you start to get in, you know, a pattern, you know, forming here. In Tokyo also, you got this big competition. It's, you know, 80% of people here live alone. Okay. And you got this peer competition, peer comparison. Everybody's checking on each other's status. Everybody's comparing to each other. And a 25-year-old male in Tokyo, or who is he going to see when he, you know, is on the subway or in izakaya, in a bar? So, well, he's going to see very straightforward salary man trying to get ends meet, not a great salary, not so much thinking about the future, and little self-confidence, especially when they look at their bank account. So, now, those individuals are not going to have a kid. They're definitely not going to have a kid any soon. Now, in an inquiry, this is the real statistics that we should look at. In an inquiry, guys were asked why they don't want to have babies. And the two reasons are this. They want their own time for hobbies, and they cannot find merit about marriage. Or as I translate this is, I can only risk losing even more of my self-confidence if I put myself in a marriage market, so to speak, because you have to perform at a certain level of expectations, especially savings and salary, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So what about the alpha males? Those, you know, have, you know, a great successful career as well. Those very few are, you know, you could say you have two categories. Those are going to have a full-fledged career and live a very hedonistic life. And as you said, rightly said, you know, not having a baby means, you know, it's equal to having an hedonistic life. I totally agree with that. And, but they don't have, you know, this category that doesn't have, you know, doesn't think about marriage. But, you know, in this alpha male, so to speak, category, there are also the ones that are going to get married, but past their 30s, and their wives are going to pass their 30s, and they are very unlikely to have more than one kid anyway. So you see the population base, which is statistically more likely to have a baby or have it while they're young, it's microscopic. And that's why you get this situation. And plus, just the final before you get a comment, also there's a bigger picture that you need to look at, and that is the population has been growing in 70s and 80s, and you can look at the statistics, and then it started to slow down. Now, it's funny actually when you see this, the curve slowing down, which doesn't mean reducing the population, the growth is slowing down. Then it's in the 90s, and that's when the boom was over, and you got this stagnation period and this stall. Now, for every year, now there's a statistic every year it comes on the news. You will see it every year, which is, oh, even this year 10% less babies. Like it was 1 million the year before, now it's only 800,000. Now, if you think about it, if the social dynamics don't change, well, you know, the babies are going to be less and less just statistically, because every year you get a generation that's 10% less of population, and the next generation is going to, of course, going to be 10% less. If it doesn't change the social dynamics, which will allow you to make you have a baby. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So you go from 1 million that you got 800,000. That's the generation that's the population that, you know, that will have a baby. And then that generation again, it's going to have less and less and less. It's just statistic. Yeah, that's just to conclude that thought. And if you want, if you get a thought, otherwise we would go. Why is in the countryside or in the small cities would be different?
Okay, so basically, and I don't want to reduce the complexities, but just so I can get a sort of handle on it to begin with. So basically, because of debt, economic slowdown, recession, these zombie companies, this highest national debt in the debt to GDP ratio north of 200%. I mean, it's completely mad, right? So
It's ridiculous.
because of that, people, it's like running to stand still. Like you work, but you can't get ahead. And so you're getting this kind of socialist decay in people's ambition and hope. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I can just find tentacle porn, or maybe I can just find hobbies, or maybe I can, because there's nowhere to grow into adulthood. Is that, I know I'm probably simplifying it enormously, but I just want to get the beginning of it like that.
Well, again, if you put it, it's also, that's why I wanted to talk about the life in the countryside, because the values are different. So in the cities, the values is all about money, and that's how you judge everything else. And so it's so it's like they have boxes they have to fill up, and you say, okay, unless I have so much saved up, I'm not able to to get a baby or to have a family. They just think that way. They think that way. As my wife was saying, like it's like video games. Like stage 1, stage 2. It's like they have to clear that, and unless they have enough ammo or something, they don't feel confident of going forward. And that's exactly what Japanese do. They don't take a risk. They they see what they have and they just make a judgment. And just to give you an example how different it is from outside of Tokyo, in Tokyo. So in Tokyo, of course, if you go to a Famima, the convenience store, and you just buy anything, and you have 1 cent. Of course, doesn't matter. It could have been like what, $100 things. You have 1 cent, which is nothing. 1 cent of yen, it's really nothing. Well, you can't buy the thing. There's nobody say, like in Italy, they would probably do, yeah, just leave it there. No, you just leave the stuff there, and of course you go home. Now, I just came back from Nagano. I was in Nagano in the countryside, out in the mountains, and it was funny. I went to the supermarket and I just bought a lot of stuff because the stuff in vegetables and fruits is just so much good, in the mountains there, because the water is so much crystal and clear, and it's just really, really good, and it makes everything, the kome, the rice, so much better. So I bought a lot of the stuff, and but I didn't spend that much because it's cheap to begin with. It's like what, $10. And this woman, the cashier, which is her supermarket, she just gave me $10 worth of other. What is a momo? What is it? A peach? You just give it to me for free. So just get this too. And see what I mean? The values are completely different, and that's why I want to get to the fact that being outside of the big city is completely different. In small cities, they can marry early. They have babies early. One thing you could say, well, there's nothing else to do. But yes, but most important in the small cities, salary doesn't matter, or it just matters much less. Women, I think you also talked to some episodes before. Well, women love those construction guys with tattoos and muscles in the countryside because the values are different. In the countryside, that's a bonus. To have that kind of body, and to do that kind of job. And plus, they are close to their jika, to their family. That's where they are. They live there. If you look at the old anime, Maruko or Doraemon, you always see anime, the animation, let's say drama. Well, these families, they always used to be in the 60s and 70s. Always used to be, this 4 family plus 2 children. That means father, mother, and grandfather, always living in the same house. And of course they're going to have kids. Of course they're going to have kids. Of course they don't care, what's the salary. They have somebody, helping out there. In Tokyo, you could say, people are pretty much brainwashed. Women, I see women as just, I'm sorry, I just stand there watching in this cramped train station. There's women, really, some of them really good looking, and they're like, they don't want to do that. They just don't want to do that. And I talk to them, and because I go out with a lot of, just for, speaking practice, and, a lot of friends, like you could say tens, if not hundreds a year, and I meet them. And I talk to them, and it's also part of my job, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, every single one of them wants to get married and wants to have children. Every single one. It's not a case of a girl that I met said, no, I don't want to have kids. I'm just fine. No way. They just cannot find a guy who's, reliable enough to commit. And, that's the Tokyo life, That's what they think they're supposed to do.
So the women want to settle down, but the men don't feel that they can support them. I mean, again, to sort of boil it down to that,
Yeah.
is that right?
Sure.
And is it because, I mean, so, okay, let's say I'm in Japan, and let's say I'm Japanese, ethnically, and I go to some woman, and I have this odd confidence, as I want to do. I have this odd confidence. And I go up to her and say, hey, baby, you don't need all this money. We'll move out to the country. I hear a friend of mine's got a place, $850 a month. We don't need any of this 3,000 crap. We'll move out to the country, fresh air, no coronavirus, hearty people, good people, beautiful countryside, great sunsets, lovely mountains maybe nearby, rice fields stretch to the horizon. So, let's make a go of it, and we can ditch this big city lifestyle and go country. And what's she going to say? Is she going to be like, that's intriguing? Or is it like, you've got to be insane?
That's a very, very, very good question. So there is an actual movement, and I even wrote about this. There's a movement from the city to the countryside, okay? But this is a mostly single, and actually say single man movement. A lot of single men give up their stress in the city and they move out in the countryside. We know lots of people. It's just another one just give up her job. We know the same firm of my wife. He gave up his job. He just went on the really countryside, Chiba, near the beach with other guys. They're constructing this sort of hostel, whatever. They're just going to live there all together. It's kind of a dormitory lifestyle. They just have it. They have it. Now, would they, if they had a girlfriend, which is not very usual. No, they wouldn't have the confidence to have the discussion like that. They wouldn't. They wouldn't because
what would they? I mean, look, nobody likes to. Men don't enjoy it, so to speak. It's just worth it, right? He who does not try, he never succeeds. But is it because they would be perceived as lower status because they're saying move to the country? I can't afford a city place.
Yeah, I don't think they would go that far. I don't think they would have the confidence in themselves to go that far. And yeah, they would. They would. Look, when two people meet here for the first time, let's say through a matching app, it's really all about status and money. It's about portraying yourself. And I talk to the numbers of girls who tell me, look, the guys, they just go out there and they just wait to pay the check and pay you the next check and pay you the next check. It's all about that, and it's a very shallow conversation to begin with.
Wait, sorry. And just help me understand that again. The guys, the women just expect the guys to pay the checks?
Well, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And the guys, they're very fine with that. I mean, they see. I could say they what they lack in confidence, they get it with the paying for the do part with the with paying everything to the girl. Yes, I mean even when they go for a weekend, it's expected, of course, the guy, especially if they're just met for a couple of months, to pay for the hotel and pay for the otherwise they'll be like, oh, what about this? Or, I mean, come on, that's what they expect. But this is because the city values, okay? This is here. This works like this. There's no girls that would keep continuing going out with you if you don't even do this kind of offering whatever you want to call it. It's expected. And so you're talking about even getting the next step, and say, oh, let's forget about all this. Let's forget about the French restaurant and stuff, and let's move together, to the countryside where the rent is much cheaper, and we can live a happy life there. No, the girl was like, yeah, no way. Well, she's gonna choose, some other guy, unless they have, really strong bond, which doesn't happen. I mean, the couples here, I could tell you about the couples that I see around here where I live. They have a very, very shallow relation. And you see them on the table when they're dining, even when they have a kid, they barely talk. They barely talk. And when they talk, it's just superficial things. It's very superficial. And that's another, conversation we could have about the communication problem in Japan, which is another big deal.
Okay, so the men, you say they lack the confidence, but if they're providing an option to, is it because the women don't want to move away from their families, and if the families are in the city, the women want to stay there?
No, their family usually it's not in the city. It's not in the city. It's usually the Jika. It's somewhere else. It's way in the countryside. It's like a few hours away. Usually it's what it is. It's Tokyo is just people who came from outside. And Tokyo, remember, I'm not sure about this, but it's the only place where the population is growing now. Everywhere else in Japan is going down, and Tokyo is going up because everybody's moving from there. So you can see the trend that I was talking to you about that gets even worse because you got the people who have more likely to have a baby because they're close to their family back in the countryside. Those people are moving here, and they are going to get injected this new cycle of lifestyle, which is this modern lifestyle. And they've been, in my opinion, brainwashed to it, and they think this is the way to go. And but this city lifestyle, it's what in the end, it's the virus that doesn't make you, make children in the end, because that's what it gets to. Because if you have a career, you're gonna have a career. If you don't have a career, then, or if you don't have that much a career, you don't have the confidence because you don't have the money, you don't have the savings. So you see, and. So if you could stop this, cycle of people coming in the big city, and just that would make it. Just that would make it. The few trends that I told you about, the people leaving their salaryman job and going to the countryside, it's minuscule. It's just very, very small. I met them. You met them. But they're really, really, you're talking about really, really small amount of people. The other ones, you just come here. And I mean, it's just so I feel so bad about these people. I just met, because I talked to everyone even on the train, and there was these two guys that just came from the countryside here to Tokyo, and they were going for a training. And I think it was around I think it was also a holiday time. I can't remember, but and we talked about it. I talked to them, and I was like, so what are you going to do here? I was like, no, we're just training. I was like, have you been out in Tokyo? Oh, no, we just be living together in this dormitory here together, just 21 years old, very young guys. And I said, is that what you wanted to do? And I asked him, I was like, well, is that what you wanted to do? And just laughing, he said, they don't know what they wanted to do. They're just performing. They just got that job. They just got the job interview. That's what you're supposed to do. Zero experience, no experience, because, you go to university here, I don't think it's much different from anywhere else. Because here, you don't get any knowledge, zero. Especially life knowledge. They have no experiences. And they just go directly to find a job when they're 21. They have no idea what they want. They just go with it. And, I would say they're being harassed for how I see it. Going, on this dormitory, just brought from the countryside straight to this dormitory, for months through the training of the company. And most of the companies have their, their dormitories near, where their main offices are. And that's all they're going to do for months, and they don't even know why they're there. They just know they have to be there, so to speak, And when you ask them what to do, is that what you really want to do? Is that what you applied for? Is that the job, your dream job? I don't know. No. I mean, no. It's really, really sad. I have a soccer team that I play with. They're all university students. They're also 20s, and I'm a bit older. I mean, not a bit, but I'm older. But I like to be with the guys because I like to hear them. And well, first of all, none of them has a girlfriend, which is just. But anyway, when you talk to them, I think there's only one guy who really knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a teacher. That's it. The other one were like, one was going to work for his father's company, which is a very successful company. And the other ones are like, yeah, we'll see, because there's this shukatsu here. So the job market, how is done here? So you have this shukatsu, which is so it's time to look for a job. That's what it is. And so they go before the COVID era. They go to these huge meetings and the huge halls with tons of kaisha of companies, and you go there, you listen what they got to say. So you basically go around and choose which company may fit you, but it's not really what it may fit you. It's just because you never know what's it going to be. And most of these people, they just start a job in a company, and in the end, they don't really like the job. Most of them don't like the job. The other thing, the Japanese, and this trend is really going, it's increasing. There are, whether you look at a couple of generations before or a generation before, where they used to be more open even to go out to explore the world and travel. Now it's reversed, okay? And it's all inside. It's all like being here. Many don't even, if they travel, they go like skiing.
Right.
They barely have experience outside. And those who do, I'll tell you, they are completely different people. They are completely different people. They see another world, and they really found that those who are more likely to find out what they really want in their lives. So if you have no experience, I'm sorry, but I would be the same case. If I had no experience, just go look for a job. Say, what job? I don't know what I even want to do. And but that's the situations they're in, and for an incredibly meager salary. And so you put the rent, you put, how they can even afford the girlfriend, it's out of my mind, it's just scanned. That's why they want to stick to their hobbies. And that's why the hobbies now, what are their most indoor hobbies, right? So it's all about being inside the house and play video games, A lot of these people, that's all they do, the lives they do, video gaming. And now because you got all these social media video games, which helps you, create this illusion that you actually have friends and you have contact with people. That's why they get they're very, talkative when you talk to them with messages. They're incredibly talkative, and I see them a lot, especially also girls. And then you meet them, they just, move on. They're just completely silent. They have nothing to say. Nothing to say because this trauma of actually seeing a human being that you haven't met before, it's just too much for them, to bear. It's like, oh my God, this is new. I got a new person in front of me. I don't know what to say. I'm embarrassed. And yeah, but this is also very true as a cross-cultural and cross-national, this trend. But here in Japan, it's even worse.
Right. So, is this something that real estate and so on, because there's such an aging population, are the older populations moving out of the cities, or I guess they have pretty generous pensions. I remember there was some Japanese minister who was lamenting that they weren't dying off in a fiscally responsible manner, the old people. But is there any sort of pressure downwards on rents because old people are getting out of the places?
Who's getting out of the places?
The older people in Japan.
You mean getting out? You mean they're dying off? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I mean, so if you have a larger place, sometimes you will move to a smaller place when you get older. So is there any sort of, it's downsizing, like if you have a 3-bedroom house and your kids are grown, then you might go to a smaller place.
No, that's not the case. So the case is this: they rarely move to another place, especially if they. So remember this word. This is jika. This means the house where you were born. It's the house you were raised. So the jika doesn't change. That's where there is. It's always there. And at the most it gets emptied, but they're still going to live there by themselves. And that's why you have the case. And I actually explored this very in the details because I went there. Actually, I went and I followed so there's this phenomenon of people dying. I'm sure you heard about it, dying alone.
I was actually watching a documentary about that. Yeah, it's kind of chilly.
Right. Great. I followed the guy who goes there and cleans up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You want to bring the other people up to speed on this situation. It's a pretty
oh,
chilly.
Sorry. Yes. So what happens is that because a lot of people are moving out and a lot of people live by themselves, this is true for any ages. And, of course, the older you are, the more chance you're going to be left alone because people are just dying. And they in the event, there's a higher risk eventuality that you will have, you will get sick or you will get a heart attack or you will just have, like just yesterday in Tokyo, hundreds of people died, and you're talking about coronavirus. 100 people just yesterday in Tokyo died out of, what is it called, sunstroke? 100 people, okay? And most of these people, of course, they're alone. If I get a heart stroke, which is possible because, there was this video, just my wife showed me, like this girl she's on television, live television. She's doing this broadcast live, and she's just fainting in front of the camera because she's 20 because it's just so hot here. This is a real big problem, and I mentioned it before about it. My work, the fact that the Olympics, doing the Olympics in the summer was a crazy idea. So So you got, if you get sick alone, you're done here. There's no neighbor to call to, especially if you're in a big city. Because you have no neighbor.
Well, you have neighbors, but you just don't know them, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have the neighbor. What do you call it? The kankei we call it here. For the Japanese coming in a relationship,
a community,
yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But even in the countryside, you have the relationship, but most of the countryside, it's really countryside. So, your neighbor could be, 200 meters away, and if you're dying of a stroke, there's no way you're going to call them, especially if you're old. That's why now they have this, what do you call it in English? Well, they have this, these young people get together in the small villages, and they do rounds, and they ask old people if they're alone to put like a flag in front of the house, stuff like this, But so there is this problem of people dying alone. What is the name of? Kodokushi, yes. So kodokushi, this is a phenomenon, and again, it's not only old people. One of the rooms that I visited was a 40-year-old. 40-year-old was my age, and there was actually his. How do you call this? You could see on the floor his shape because he lied there for days. Okay. Yeah. And his body, decomposed, and man, I can tell it the smell. What was that? But anyway, that was an amazing experience I had. But you see it close by what you otherwise you just get from news, and it's just not the same. You got to feel it, experience, see what it is, and this is a huge problem. So you were talking about like houses getting empty. You're getting empty when they die. It's not because people moving out. They get empty this way. Like my wife, grandparents, they moved out because one got Alzheimer, and so they, the parents built them a new house near their house, and then they just left the house empty there. But basically, it's like clinically dead, so to speak. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what it is. They got Alzheimer, they can function in anything. So that's when they get empty, not because they move out. So you got a lot of haikyo, a lot of these abandoned places everywhere in Japan, which is tremendous. Even here, even in Shinjuku, was with a friend of mine, and we and her, we just go sometimes, we go take pictures, and Shinjuku is like the center. It's like, what do you call it? It's more than 15. It's like 42nd Street, the one in New York, or what's it called? I forgot. Times Square. Yeah. It's like Times Square. And then you just walk I think we walked not even like a few hundred meters, and we just bumped into this new house, and this completely old abandoned house. Completely old, like 2 floors. So we went inside. We shouldn't have, but we went. And even took a video and stuff, but then it was completely empty. And then we got out. As soon as we got out, we got caught from the side. I was like, what are you doing here? And it's just barely caught. It basically turns out that was his parents' house. See, so what happened was he probably built a house next to a new house and took care of his parents inside because they probably got so sick they just couldn't even function by themselves. But the house was left there empty. But nobody's going to buy the house. The house is like, when they got the money, if somebody has the money, that's why you have a lot of abandoned houses. Only if you have the money to crash it down and just build something new, you do that. But that takes a lot of money. Otherwise, it's just left their property, and that's why they're giving these houses, especially in the countryside, for free, because the owner still has to pay the taxes for the terrain, for the the land.
Right.
And you don't want to pay them. So, and then of course, they get bigger and bigger because taxes are not going down anywhere, are they?
That is true.
That was it this year or last year that we just got an increase to 10% of the consumer tax. It's going to get even higher, just to repay for the Olympics, which didn't happen.
Well, and I assume also that if some people die, it can be legally complex if they don't have a clear will, or like who owns who, and it's to say who owes the taxes and so on, and the paperwork can be quite complicated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there's another issue there. I think was with the banks now are contacting the families to get all the paperwork done before they actually die. So yeah, that's true. That's what's happening. Yeah. And another thing we're talking about the shukatsu, and I think you mentioned it on your show. about the government calling people to see their parents. So there is this. It's not exactly like that, but so what it is, it's the part of the looking for a job thing. There is a specific looking for a job. The procedure that you look for jobs specifically, what they call it the U-turn. So that means like you look for jobs where your Jika, where you were born, where your parents are. And so they will try to make you go back there somehow and find you a job there. But of course, there's not so many jobs there. There's no careers to make there, especially if it's a small town. But they're trying that. They just it's hard to convince these young people, especially when all they do is just look in other media and social networks. They don't have many options to experience new things.
Right.
Yeah.
Are the Japanese women adapting to these sort of realities? Are they sort of trying to reassure the men? It's like, oh, okay, I know there's been a lot of inflation, and you can't necessarily keep me in the style to which my father kept my mother. Is there any comfort for the young men who were facing these kinds of challenges?
I'll tell you another trend that is going on with the women, especially when they reach the marriage age. That's why I was talking about, like, it's critical. The age is critical, especially if you pass there. Because in Asia, well, I'm sure you're well aware of this. In Asia, especially when you pass the 30, you're called Obachan here. That means you're on like an old end. I know it's kind of like you make
yeah, they say an old maid would be the phrase in English.
Yeah, exactly. So once you pass that. So, you immediately go into another, so to speak, stage definition of yourself. And they feel so, even if they're beautiful, some of them, and they're smart, they still feel in that category. And they look, themselves like really low. They themselves, women, feel not much confident of finding somebody. And there's this new trend that I, delineated. And there's the 30-year-old women who could totally be married by now and have kids because they're really good looking and they have a job, they can leave their job, and they maybe have savings. Now they're getting married to their pet. That's what's happened. So they get
that's kind of tragic.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I can name you cases and cases and cases and cases and cases of women. They just bought this new puppy, and most of them are friends of mine, and these are people that I meet. And of course, that is worse than that sounds, because, it gives you a substitute. Was that the philosopher that, I forgot his name, but anyway, it was, it's a total substitute psychologically of the presence of a creature, therefore, of a baby. And it does replace, in a lot of ways, the feelings that you are looking for in the marriage and in the pregnancy, in your actual pregnancy. And a lot of them are like, fuck this, I love my pet. And I have girls who've said that to me. It's like, I'll just stay with my little puppy, and and every time you ask them, they're like, what are you doing this week? Yeah, I'll just take the puppy around. And I met this one girl. She's from Taiwan, and she moved here she's been here for years. Of course, personality is completely Japanese, because when they move here, they become like that. And there's a lot of Taiwanese here too. And she just got her menkyo, her kuruma, the car license in Japan. I said, what do you need it for? He's like, you can go by train everywhere, by bus everywhere. I have an international license. I haven't got that local license because I don't need it. You just don't need it in Japan. I was like, no, I need it because a lot of cars, they don't rent if you have a puppy. If you have a pet, a small dog or whatever, she has a small dog. So I said, I wanna get it so we can go anywhere. And I'm
now,
like, this
is anyone? Oh man, don't even get me started. Is anyone in their family saying, this is nuts? This is not healthy. This is weird. This is like stranger than Lars and the Real Girl blow up doll in a Police song. Like, this is some freaky ass shit. Is anybody saying that to these women, or it's like, well, I guess she likes, it's okay to love your pets, just don't love your pets,
Well, in this case, her family's in Taiwan, and so that wouldn't be far from the parents. And again, the 30 years old are usually far from the parents. So understand, like when I mean far from the parents, I mean they just don't have any contact with her. I mean, my wife is 26. She sees her father once a year, and when they see them, that it's like this. It's like what finished. It's like, I mean, that's the relations they have, and you're talking about like having this conversation about.
Does she even know you're Italian? I mean, what is going on here? Because Italians are like welded at the hip to family. So does she? Have you broken this to her that you're actually Italian? Because that seems like a bit of a cultural gap in terms of family relations.
And that's why she really likes my family, when she meets my family, because they can hug and stuff, and then when she meets my mom,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't give a shit. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So women, rather than adjusting their expectations, they're just going quietly insane. Is that your take?
Yes. 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 I mean, they just don't want to make the extra effort because, I mean, it's kind of understandable, though, in a way, because if you let them meet a lot of shitty guys that just don't want to commit until they're 30, and then you get 30 out, you just want to give up. I mean, it's kind of understandable. It's not, I don't understand them. I do, actually. I do. I understand them. You had all this try, and then you're like, yeah, this guy didn't want to commit, and this guy didn't want to commit. And this guy, yeah, we're fine just, being a, girlfriend and guy, and, see, again, the salary is not so big for the guys, and they have all these hobbies, because they do have lots of hobbies, they go skiing, they go snowboarding, they got the PlayStation, and they go cycling, and they got a lot of stuff, and the money, sorry, it's just not enough. It's just not enough.
Well, it's enough for hobbies, and good hobbies. It's just not enough for a family, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And
that's kind of the worst thing too. Sorry to interrupt you, but like really poor people have a lot of kids. I mean, that's most of human history, right? Everybody was just completely broke, right? And you have a lot of kids. I don't know what that correlation's about. Now, wealthy people can also have a lot of kids because they can afford them and all of that. But that sort of lower middle class, not quite to the middle class thing. It's like you've got just enough money for travel and cool hobbies, which is really distracting from a family, but you just don't have enough money to do the actual family. At least that's your perception, right? And that seems to be the sweet spot, or I guess the sour spot for it's the sweet spot for low fertility.
Yeah, when I was living in India, it's something like which to me struck me because nobody ever thought about this. I mean, to my knowledge anyway, that the fact that why is it this poor country? And I was living in Bangalore and just surrounded by kids. I was like, why is it? And they live in this, the most poor conditions. It's like, why do they have so many kids? It's like, why is always like the talk is like, oh, they don't have enough money, to in Italy anyway, like where that's where the conversation goes on, in the media. It's like, you need to have the standard of so much money to afford an education and everything. I was like, why is this about money? And when these people are having kids, and they look happy anyway, so. Yeah,
no, the poorest continent is Africa, and it's got the highest fertility rate.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, is anyone saying to the women in the media or in the culture or in the religion, is anyone saying to women, don't do the dog thing, just adjust your expectations?
It's funny that you say, because I think it was was the Pope, I think it was a couple of years ago that said that, and he was I think lambasted from some medias because he said that, but he was right on the point, because this trend happened, I guess, in a lot of other places, and he was right on the point. And because it was perceived to be anti-animals and stuff, because now you see all these animals rights stickers everywhere, and I still can't get it. I'm sorry, I just can't get over it. When I go to a restaurant or cafe and this guy comes in with a dog, now you can't say shit. You can't say anything. You perceived as a, anti-animalistic, whatever you say that. And to me, it's just ridiculous, honestly. So yeah, there was a high, what you call an institution, in religion, I guess, that said that, and he was really highly criticized. But no, not in the media, not that I heard of. No,
that's
no way, no
I
way.
don't.
No way.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, as you know, I will. Helping people to be happy is a complicated business, and it's not to do with just reinforcing all the weird ideas they have until they go crazy. That's not, like it's sort of like withholding that smoking is bad from someone because you don't want to up someone, then they just get lung cancer and die. It's like, we are, hey, this drug addict wants drugs, I'll make them happy by going to get them. Like, there's got to be some tough love in the world, otherwise we don't have any morals at all. The morals are around the tough love stuff. And back when I was before I was yeeted off Twitter, I mean, I would occasionally post about fertility issues and aging, and if you want to have kids and so on. A lot of people who don't have kids go a little crazy. I've sort of seen it in the arc of life. Kids really ground you. They they are such an unnegotiable reality that you can't live in pure abstraction. You can't just fritter away your life because you've got to. And there's this big mantle of responsibility. I mean, I remember the night we brought my daughter home. I'm like, I got to keep this kid alive. Yeah, I've got to keep her healthy. I got to keep her entertained. I got to raise her well. I got to educate her. Like, there's a whole lot of not me in being a parent, and not me is actually kind of good. If I have had a tough day or whatever, and I'm feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I'm pulling that Atlas shrugged, knees bowed, gums bleeding shit, I go and play with my daughter, and it's great. It's a real refresher. It charges me back up. And not being stuck in yourself is really important. And kids, it's one of the great gifts that they don't even know that they're giving you. And so for me, if it's like, yeah, sure, the dog is a great substitute for a baby, it's like, no, that's terrible. What are you doing? Like, so if the woman is choosing bad men, help her. Like help her figure out. They can't all be bad. They can't all be bad. And so there's got to be some good men out there. I mean, and so just go help her to find a good man. Help her not waste her life. Help her not fritter her time away. Because, for women, especially Japanese women, they're basically undead, right? Like, they just live forever. And, if you don't have kids, man, and you going from, like, 40 to 90, I mean, 40 to 90 is almost as long as I've bloody well been alive. That is a whole lot of time to pretend that changing the diaper on your dog is not insane. That is a whole lot of time to just be weird without a do-over, without a mulligan, without a redo. Yeah. And so it's kind of weird to me that people don't just say to women the truth. I mean, do we have that little respect for women that we can't just say, yeah, maybe you should stop screwing around, stop getting male attention for being pretty, and use it for nature's purpose, which is to lock down a good man so you can have a great family and have comfort and companionship into your old age. Because, there's this whole incel thing that's going on these days. Every man who criticizes women is an incel who can't get laid. And the reality is that the real incels are women over 40 who are unmarried. That's all projection, right? That the real incels are the women over 40 who aren't married, who don't have kids, and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean they'll never get married or anything, but as far as involuntarily celibate goes, man, that's where the real dry crotch is. And you're right about women. I remember, it's just popped into my mind. I'll be quiet in a sec because I know we're here to learn about Japan, but as the thoughts come tumbling out, I try and catch them. But I remember back in the day when I was working chief technical officer in a software company, I had an employee, and she was childless, and she was not old, not middle-aged, but she was getting up there. She was married, but she was childless. And, I would occasionally say, if the topic came up, yeah, I think kids are great, I can't wait to become a dad, and blah, blah. When you've got an instinct you're going to be really good at something, it's really, you look forward to doing it. I would look forward to giving speeches back when it was physically possible for me to do so. And anyway, so one day there was a story in Canada about a cougar that had attacked a mother and her children. And the mother fought the cougar off, and then the cougar was caught. And they put the cougar down, right? Which, sorry, mother-child versus cougar, don't get me wrong, I like the big kitties if you have to choose, right? And I remember, and I was so young at this point, I was guessing my late 20s, early 30s, and I was so young, I was like, I didn't understand why she was freaking out. She got really emotional. like really attached to this cougar, how unjust and wrong it was to just kill this cougar just for doing what cougars do, don't you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, I get that. I cheered at the end of Jaws, even though the shark is just doing what the shark does. I still like the fact that it got its head blown off. Oh, spoiler. Anyway, just to remember thinking, like, how strange it was, this weird attachment to animals that some women have. And I think it does have a lot to do with the sort of nurturing a mother side. And, man, don't even get me started with women and horses. That's a whole other planet. Like, what is it with chicks and horses? Like, oh, my God, they're nice animals. Don't get me wrong. They're pretty animals and all that, but man, I've known some women who've just like horse, like, and like, I mean, it can't be that pleasurable to ride. Well, maybe they are for women. I don't know, but yeah, women and animals can be quite a complicated situation. I don't know if you've ever seen that funny video of this woman. It was a dating video she recorded on some dating site, and she talks about how much she loves cats. And you know, it starts off kind of sane, and then at the end, she's like caterwauling and weeping about how much she just loves cats, and it's really sad. You know, women are designed to attach to babies and raise them up, and men are designed to, you know, mentor babies and raise them up. And you know, again, you can have lots of people don't have the opportunity or the or they have the physical, don't have the physical capacity to have babies, and you know, lots of love, lots of sympathy and so on, but you know, we're really stepping out of the train tracks of human life if we voluntarily decide to avoid children as a whole. And I just think it's just so sad that people aren't telling women about this, but instead women find out when they pass 40 and they can't have kids. And, oh, man, that to me is the cruelest thing that you could do, is just withhold this knowledge until a woman ends up marrying a puppy. Like that's I don't know, that's just so sad. I can't even tell you. And I guess it's the same in Japan as it is everywhere else. It's like, oh, don't anger the ladies, don't upset the ladies, otherwise you won't get laid. I don't know, it's weird. But you know, the first time that I found a woman who welcomed criticism, like, you know, you said, hey, I want to set you straight on some things about Japan, and I wasn't like, you bastard. How dare you? I am the oracle at Delphi. I'm like, hey, great. I talked to someone who's Japan, set me straight. And the first time I met a woman like that, I put a ring on her finger very, very, very quickly, because it's like, oh, good, you're a reasonable person who can take criticism and wants what's best for herself, even if it's a little uncomfortable in the short run. All right, let's get married.
It's funny you say that, because the first thing when I wrote to you, I was like, well, is he going to answer or not? Because I don't know, you know, because I was kind of like critical. I think when I wrote, I was, you know, just on my phone, like I didn't really, and I was like, when you answer, wow, this guy really is looking for the truth. That's the first thing that popped out to me, because, you know, that's what you always, you know, say. I was like, is it, I mean, wow, I mean, he really wants to talk about this. So I was quite surprised, honestly. I mean, but, you know, it's great. It means, you know, you're, you know, extremely honest, you know, when you say that you're, you know, interested in the truth, and that's, you know,
the idea that, you know, I've read half of Shogun and watched a couple of documentaries, and the idea that I'm going to have some inside scoop into Japanese culture over someone you said you lived there for 8 years, right? It's like, yeah, no, I have whole videos. I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. I love getting new knowledge, and I have no issues if I'm incorrect about stuff. I'll fight to the death if I think I'm right. I have good reason, but with regards to this stuff, I just want the facts. Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because I'm really curious about the intergenerational relations that are going on in Japan. Like here, here doesn't mean anything to you, but so in the West, there's the whole "shut up, boomer" meme, with the boomer thing, right? And everyone thinks I'm a boomer because, you know, if you're bald and you're over 50, anyway. But so there's this frustration and anger at the boomers, which, you know, I share to a large degree. Is there that sense of frustration and criticism that the elder generation, who stuck their pigs' noses in the government trough and hoovered up all the resources for the next generation?
Yeah, yeah, there is a friction, yes, and it came out especially in the workplace environment. So what happened is that you've been listening and a lot of criticism from the old generation to the young generation, that the young generation is not really, you know, doing enough. It's not working its ass off like, you know, the old generation did, and you know, it's just incapable of doing things, of gammon, which is this word in Japan, which means what's that? Tolerant. Yeah, like just keep all your pain inside and just move on. It's not such a big pain deal. Just go on and go on with your work.
Sorry to interrupt. So tolerance to me, there's tolerance for difference, which is kind of the thing in the West. But tolerance has come to mean if you have any judgments about any ideology, other than white males, then you're an intolerant person. So it's probably a little different in Japan. I just want to make sure we translate well.
It is different. Yeah. So it's not tolerance. It's man, one second. Gaman. So patience. That's maybe closer. Patience, be patient and do what's your responsibility with your work without complaining too much, because that's all the generation have done before.
Sorry to interrupt again, but it's sort of like in England for sure there was this older concept kind of fallen away called duty.
Yeah, gimu. I mean that's what they use here too. That's what they use here too. Yeah, duty. It's something you should, basically not context, not go against it. It's just something that you have to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because this is happening generation to generation. We're talking about now. Again, with my wife is 26. We're talking about the newcomers in her company, which are 21, 22. And they are so intolerant now. I can use this word, intolerant to hard work, and as soon as they see a little barrier in front of them, it's like they just want to give up. They just want to change a job, but it's like this is not fit for me. So it's not even like the old generation to this generation. It's just it just keeps freckling down. It's just, the generation to the next one. They all each other. Have this complaints. As a matter of fact, she complains about the older generation, the fact that they get so much criticizing. And then she's like, well, you guys work so much because you had no computers and stuff, but we can do 10 times your work because, in 1 hour, because you got computers, we got all these programs and stuff that you didn't have. So we're still producing more. So yes, there is this, generations, and it holds to, facts, honestly. I mean, it does. I mean, the older generation, again, they had all of this responsibility of families and stuff. Of course, they couldn't, complain about their job because they had kids, they had a family, right? And so the new generation, they don't. And they complain a lot. Yes, that's the bottom line. They definitely do complain a lot.
And what do they, is there a general sense of just how messed the economy is, like this debt and like, I mean, is there any because I know it's not the case of the West. Everybody just keeps piling on debt, and it's like Voldemort, like nobody can ever talk about it, right? Is it the same way? Because I know that this what is it now, 3.5 decades of this zombie economy, of this recession-y, depression-y, no growth situation and slow decline. Is it like if you have tinnitus, like after a while, it's like, yeah, I don't really hear it anymore because just, it's a drag, but whatever, right? Is it like people have just got so used to it, or it's gone on for so long, or is there just this sense of like just frustration?
No, there is none of that. There is just not. Nobody's thinking about what was that? The Ronald Reagan, is that the debt is just it just says it's big enough to take care of himself. Is that what he said in a presidential debate?
Yeah, that's kind of. That was Reagan. I mean, so yeah, I mean, the whole goal, the goal under Trump was to grow the economy to start to deal with the debt, but then coronavirus came and took all of that. So.
Yeah, but it's like it's a problem of its own, and nobody has this kind of conversation about that. No, it's really self-focused a lot. There's no sense of general, economy, the trend, where it's going. There is a little, like when the consumer tax goes up, usually in this past few years, just gone up like 2%. It was 5% used to be. And the beginning, like, well, people just start buy less, But then the trend, after they have this, rejection, and they start buying again, and it gets to a normal level, the consumption. So, but in general, no, this is not what the young generation, definitely not. They're not even aware. They're not aware of anything, honestly. It's funny we're talking about like what was the problem? So we're really discussing this. Like, what is the problem with the young generation? Like talking about 2021, the young workforce that getting inside the companies now, the shakai jing, the social workers. Social workers is not in the sense social worker from the government. It means you're in the society. That's what they call a worker here. You're in the society because you start working. So what is the problem with this new shakai jing? It's like, well, it's a lot of them, they don't even have like the predisposition of thinking what they really want, or they really, what's they go basically from the question to the result right away. And one, it's of course dictated by this by the it's also by the what do you call it, being addicted to the new media. They're just telling me like the first thing they do when they look for some answers, like what is the ideal life? I was like, there's people actually looking for this, yeah. And they go like on Twitter, because Twitter here is very, very popular. It's the #1 social network, and they go and they hashtag that. It's like, what's trending, like that I should want to. They don't think what they would want, because based on their, idiosyncrasies and stuff and their experiences, their interactions. No, that's like what is trending. And that's why it's so predictable, life here. Why that's how they work. So the branding company, the sponsoring company, they work like this. They, now there's, this is funny, as a new podcast I was listening to this Japanese, they were talking about, this guy works for branding the, like bottles like this, like water bottles, for example, and it was a very interesting thing. So what happens is that they rebrand this thing every year. I was like, why? It doesn't just make any sense. They rebrand this in a year because they need to create a new, instead of, having this old brand like, always the same. No, they need to change it a little bit because otherwise they get too used to it. So they need to change it a little bit because otherwise the sales goes down. So, but if you rebrand it, if you rechange it a little bit, then it stays the same. So you always have to change, in order to stay at the same place, basically. And he was talking also about the fact that in the marketing business, where it used to be, whether you focus on an ideal, it's called persona here, ideal focused individual. So let's say, I don't know, 25 years old, likes watch this kind of movies, reads anime, reads manga, or has this hobbies, blah blah. Okay, that's our target. We're going to focus on him as a commercial company. But now what they say is like, okay, who's your friend? Okay, focus on your friends. It's like, because you can't make it wrong. It's just not, you're not going to fail because everybody of that age, that generation is just going to think the same. That's how far has gone the general, how do you say, I didn't get the word. What is that? When people get influenced by everybody's what they see, around them.
Yeah, it's sort of like groupthink, or there's a German zeitgeist, the general way of thinking of the majority. Yeah.
Exactly. Conformity. That's exactly what it is. And it's so true that they're using the branding company are using this. Like, just get your friend and see what he likes and what he does, because that's going to be right on the point. Because everybody else that he knows, the same age, is just going to like the same thing. The trends here are incredible. They work so well, and so it's really not surprising that, everybody, really, when it comes to even marriage and having kids, they have, they share the same ideas. It just doesn't, because if they choose the same bar, because when the new bars open, a new trend that's going on, there was this T-bubble, boom last year, and everybody just bought T-bubble. Why? Because everybody else was doing it. There's no other reason. T-bubble's been here for years, for what, 30, 40 years. It's an invention of Taiwanese, and it was brought here. But all of a sudden, it just got a boom, and everybody who had 2 square meters of space, they just put a T-bubble shop. Because maybe some trends in Instagram, everybody's watching the same thing anyway. So I got so popular.
I'm too old to have that to ride this kind of trends. Okay, let me ask you this, and really appreciate that. Two quick questions. I don't want to drag your wife into something she doesn't want to chat about, but given that we're not doing video, is there anything that she would like to add, particularly from the women's perspective?
Because she's still working now.
Oh, okay, no problem.
But
Yeah.
I can add you one thing. I will ask her, and I need to add you definitely one thing because I'm sure it'll be interesting for you to know. If you want to add anything about the women, could you think about it in maybe 2 minutes? Okay. So what I wanted to tell you, one thing is that so we talked about this women that in their 30s that they get their pet and then just like to spend their time in the pet instead of basically giving up the marriage and a baby. Now, these women, whenever I realize all of them, they are incredibly idealistic. They just they wouldn't settle for something less. That was the last guy that they met who didn't have this much, I don't know, personality, or maybe his bank account wasn't so much. So
Oh,
they go from
so
perfection.
as they're running out of money, so to speak, they want to bid higher.
Yeah, basically, yes. Until they reach that, that result, the idealistic, barrier that they have, they're just not. They rather again get the path. Then I mean, I had this friend. I mean, she was like, what was wrong with the guy? Because I introduced her to a guy which I really liked. I was like, yeah, everything was, I really liked the guy. It was so funny and it was perfect for her. I was like, yeah, but he's too young. Yeah, well, like, what the hell? He's 3 years younger. What's the matter with you? Come on. And the other guy, which she was being introduced, actually, she wasn't Japanese, but again, it's part of the same trend. Trust me, because she's been living here for years. And she was introduced by her boss to his son, because the son was desperate to get married. Really rich guy, because, he had this whole company and, invited over her to meet the son in this super expensive dinner at home, very, very private. And she was like, yeah, well, man, it's going. Well, come on, you're going to marry this rich guy. I mean, I said, no. So what's wrong with this guy? Yeah, he's just not too tall. And I'm like, okay, that's not too tall.
Oh, my God.
That's too young. I mean, come on. And
Yeah,
now,
that kind of stuff is exhausting. That perfectionism that has you alone.
Exactly. And now she bought a puppy.
Well, and it's one thing if she's the complete package. Like if she's smart and funny and wealthy and educated and gorgeous and wants kids, and like if she's the complete package, okay, yeah, maybe I could see. But I find that the pickiest people would never pass their own standards.
Right. And then just to close that with because then the other option would be, what would it be? So you would say, so what's the option for the 30-year-old? If they can find the realistic guy. And this is an actual person I actually met. It was introduced actually from her, a friend of her. And she was also, again, in her 30s. And I'm very direct, even with Japanese, which I shouldn't, but I am. And I asked her, so she was pregnant when I met her. And she was like about to have a baby. I said, wow, it's great. So who's the guy? Like, it's just somebody, when did you meet him? I said, 3 months ago. 3 months ago? It's like, you guys have a baby. Wow, amazing. So how'd you meet him? And she was like, yeah, the parents introduced. So because there is still this trend, okay? This is very important. It's a trend that used to be the Nakodo, I think they call it here, the middle guy who introduces to family. But now it's basically just family introducing each other as a neighborhood. There's even agents who do this middleman job. But anyway, two families, they introduced each other because both their son and daughter, was unmarried and in the 30s. And so they check each other, the status and stuff. But it was perfect. So they met. I was like, okay. I asked, do you like this guy? He's like, it doesn't matter. I wanted the kid. I said, come on, do you like it? So basically, in the end, it's like, she doesn't really like him. And I was like, so tell me more. It's like, do you guys sleep in the same room? Oh, no, we don't sleep in the same room. You guys do stuff? It's like, yeah, we hug. So you even kiss in the morning? No, we just hug like this and then bye-bye. It's like, but I had a kid. So their purpose was to have the kid. And for them, and she's happy. She was probably like, contemplating the option. Should I have a puppy or a fake family? Is what you want to call it? I mean, just a family, like kind of like a, it's not your idealistic, but baby, that's what you really want. That you choose that option. But not many.
Well, that's the man's nightmare, is that the sex is for the baby, and after the baby, he doesn't get sex. Because there's a depressingly large number of sexless marriages out there, and like that's like being a monk, but with spit up on your chest. Like that's terrible. I can't picture a sex like. I can't understand that in any way, shape, or form. Like how two people can live like brother and sister in a marriage. Again, absent some physical or medical issues and so on. I can understand that, but that's I don't know how any man would put up with that. But I guess everyone has their approaches. But that's it's incomprehensible to me.
Yeah, it's very un-Western, that for sure. I mean, but it's very, very Japanese. I mean, they when they focus on the outcome, and that's what they need to get, and they get there, and they're just totally fine because they got to the outcome, and whatever it's in between, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's end with this. This is why I had that conversation in the show from last Friday. Just for those of you, this is the Thursday after the Friday I did the show where I talked about Japan. Because it's sort of like Germany. There was that Saturday Night Live character, Dieter, who was this Sprockets. He would make these weird movies, and he would do these weird dances, and Mike hired him when he was very young. And, you compare that to, the brutal ferocity and world-conquering nature of the Germans in the past, and that kind of contradiction to me, that can occur within a couple of generations, is pretty wild. And if you look at, the ferocity, the brutality, the strength, resolution, and to some degree evil of the Japanese in the past, I mean, they ruled their corner of the world. They regularly invaded China, Manchuria, like they did the whole, they fought off the great American empire for a fairly militarily respectable number of years, and now it's like they just cosplay noodle worshippers. Like it seems very. Is there a sense of like, well, we did that other thing where we were very, very testosterone assertive, and that didn't work out so well for us? Is there a bit of a swing in the other direction like there is in Germany, or is that completely off the mark?
You know what's funny? Like I talked to an older guy who I found him recently because he posted in an old video from the 80s in Japan when he used to live here, and he's still living here. But I went to look for him because I wanted to talk to him. And so if you read all these books about the 80s, the booming time, and the idea you get from Western people who've been here in those times, that it's pretty much what you would get during the phase of exploding growth of China. That means that people having this huge pride about themselves, about their country, and we're number one, all that thing. And you get that in the records. Now, when I talked to this guy, this is an actual guy, so it's not a record. It's just an actual guy who lived here in the 80s in that time. And I asked him, like, so was it really like this? Was it this generation in the 80s, like the booming generation, really concerned, like really aware they were, number one? They were like, we're Japan, we're going to surpass America and all that stuff. Well, it turns out it's not the case. It's not the case. It turns out they were incredibly still. I wouldn't say submissive. I can't find the right word, but like they were very much looking forward, looking like admiring still. He was American, so still America. Even during that time of great boom here, America was like. So this guy came and he was treated like like somebody who it's like I didn't know anything about it because he was working this car business. I didn't know anything, but he was treated like like this expert who came from America, and it was this image because you come from a country who won the war, and this even if now you said, well, these guys they lost the war, and here I know this guy I do volunteer for farming work, and this old guy he's 85. He's been 5 generations doing his own farming, and of course got a big family and stuff. But when you talk to him, when he talks about America, and there's also another American guy who came recently, he just hides, just pika, just goes bright, like, he's talking about America because those are the guys who brought here modernity for whatever, he was concerned with. They brought him modernity, they brought him food, they brought him all this stuff. And so he admires still that. And, so there wasn't, from my perspective, is this big pride of, again, post-war, of Japan, of being even economically wise, this this super powerhouse which it used to be. So there wasn't. If that was your questions, I'm not sure if I answered correctly. If I went off another way. Can you hear me, Stefan?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so Japan arguably
Yeah.
suffered, I don't know, I mean, you could say certainly one of the worst occurrences. And I think, of course, if say, Japan, people blend together the country and the government, the people and the government. And it wasn't like the people who were virtual slaves of the emperor and so on. It wasn't like they had all of these wonderful choices, and they chose to go to war against America, and they chose this. And none of that. I mean, we all understand none of that. None of that happened. And so, you got the Tokyo fire bombings. You have, of course, Hiroshima. You got Nagasaki. You have, I mean, just unbelievably brutal stuff. And, of course, compared to America, America didn't have any bombs dropped on it at all. Neither did Canada, of course, and other places. So I guess for me, there is, when people mistake the culture for the government, and it's not that the two are totally separate, but they say, we were very aggressive, we were very martial, we were very disciplinarian. I can't imagine the kind of childhoods that the Divine Wind kamikaze pilots must have had in order for them to do what they did. But I don't imagine those childhoods were very good at all. And it seems very hard to stop that pendulum in the middle from this very strict, dangerous militarism or adherence to the state or worship of the emperor and so on, and then find something in the middle. It tends to go much to another extreme where any kind of assertiveness or aggression or anything like that is considered shameful. It's like, how the pendulum swings. You're saying, oh, these Japanese guys, they wouldn't have the confidence to go and talk to women. It's like, yeah, but I mean, these guys took over, massive tracts of they took over massive tracts of China, Manchuria, as I talked about before, they were not known to be unassertive in the past, and just how much has changed.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that argument on the other episode. I'm not sure. Looking from this perspective, the absence of a God figure, that was your argument, that gave them everybody like this pride, this sense of strength to go, of course, and fight the war. That was true before the war, for sure. I mean, as a matter of fact, Mishima, the guy, the literary guy who committed, traditional style suicide. He actually said something very, very, very intelligent, which is, you can't talk about these things now. But what he's like, so after the war, the emperor was. This is famous and everybody knows it, was made to be declared from the American MacArthur came here, a non-deity. So he was a human being like everyone else. So everybody knows about this, okay? But the different perspective, which, I tend to kind of see now, which is put forward by Mishima, was like, wait a second. It's like, that's an act of treason from the emperor. And the reason is, he got all these millions of soldiers who went and died for you. You see? And they died for you because they thought you were God. And now they're all dead, and you come out and say those things? Well, you're a traitor. And if you put yourself in those shoes, and in the shoes of Mishima when he said those things back then, and he was highly criticized for that, well, I'm sorry, but, it's really hard not to agree with him, honestly.
Right. Yeah, because, of course, the amount of suffering that was on the hands, predicated on the omnipotence and omnipresent and omnipowerful aspect of the emperor, and then he's like,
Sure.
No, is that bad? Okay, I won't do that anymore. And it's like,
Yeah, it was a joke. I'm sorry. We just
psych. Yeah, that's not how you want things to go, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, those people suffer, and then, like you said, they just kamikaze themselves, for the emperor, not for anything else, for the emperor. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I assume your wife is continuing to plug away.
So she's working here. Yeah,
No,
you
no,
don't have
just
to.
I just was curious if she did, and of course chat again. I hope we will.
Work.
I
Yeah,
would like
yeah.
to hear from her more if she would be
Oh
interested.
yeah.
I mean, it's not for everyone, but I certainly do
No, she's
enjoy.
interested.
Okay.
She's just still working right now. So, but yeah.
Okay. Well, listen. First of all, thanks a lot for the contact. I really, really do appreciate it, and thank you for the thoughts. It's really, really helped me to understand it a little better. And again, I know it's a very complicated thing. We can't do the whole country in an hour and a half, but thank you so much. I will. I'll of course put this out, and I'm curious if there are other people. I have always wanted to go, and if if and when it becomes possible to do so, I will do a camera crew, and you and I will meet over some nice beer.
Yeah, sure. Hope so, man.
All right, thanks very much
Looking.
for the call. I'll talk to you again. Take care.
Bye, man.